Now, usually I would be giving my post-match reaction immediately after the full-time whistle, and oftentimes it would be me at Anfield sat there telling you what I had just seen. But of course, in the case of yesterday's behind closed doors friendly against Stoke City, we've had to wait for the clips to be posted from the AXA training centre before we could get a look at how the action unfolded. But I have watched those extended highlights today, analysed the game and seeing what we can kind of learn. And I do think there are a few talking points actually worth discussing from that friendly. Of course, it did end in a 5-0 win for Liverpool in the end over Stoke, and a lot of positives to take for that reason beyond just the scoreline itself. So I'm going to go through a few talking points, as I say, and I think a good place to start really is with Florian Wirtz. Now, of course, he did miss the game at Preston, didn't he? Liverpool very cautious in the early parts of pre-season with load, and particularly with a new player who's just getting used to maybe a new style of training. They're very, very careful. So he didn't play any part at Preston, but he was in the starting 11 or the first half team against Stoke yesterday. And I think one of the big points really that we learned around him in terms of how he's going to be used going forward is the fact he was used in that number 10 position. Now, I've seen plenty of debate about where he might be deployed this season. Will Slot maybe use him off the left wing, not as a traditional winger in any sense, but as a creator cutting in off the left, maybe like a Felipe Coutinho? Will he use him in the false nine? That's definitely an option because he had played there at Bayer Leverkusen. But what we did see is just a number 10, a traditional number 10 in very much a traditional number 10 position. And I have to say, it probably makes sense, doesn't it, to just get him in that central midfield position or advanced midfield position, because you want your creative hub of the team, and make no bones about it, he's absolutely going to be that in that central area, in that area where he can pull the strings, he can dictate, he can offer thrust going either side, left or right. So I think it does make sense to use him in that position. And I think it's worth remembering that as much as he's an attacking midfielder and very much a creator, he's no slouch defensively. I mean, go back and look at my video around Florian Wirtz. I spoke about his defensive qualities, the fact he can press, he can tackle, he can get about the pitch to cover ground there and won't leave you defensively weak in the middle, despite the fact he's got all these creative qualities. So he can definitely cope in there. And I think you didn't see too many elements of that in the highlights. You didn't see a lot of the coverage is focused on the attacking moments, but we do know he's capable of that. But of course, we did see his attacking quality as well. Some really, really nice touches and exchanges. He wants to kind of one touch if he can and get the ball gone and moving it really quickly to disorganise the defence. Really like some of that. We also saw in one counter-attacking moment in particular, he's really, really quick, Florian Wirtz. So again, this list of qualities he's got is as long as your arm, really, and pace is definitely one of them. Again, not necessarily you would associate with him that he's kind of a pace merchant. You would think attacking midfielder is just almost a Riquelme type, but no, he's quick as well. And I thought, some really exciting moments from him in terms of, speed of thought, speed of movement, speed of moving the ball as well. He's just going to be, I think, absolutely massive for Liverpool this season. I think we finally got to see the first glimpses of that, although we look forward to seeing more on the tour. And of course, if there is one kind of big consequence from the fact that it looks like he's going to play in that number 10 position, that means that the consequence really is mainly for Dominik Szoboszlai, who started all of his games pretty much in that position last season. Now it looks like he's going to be moved out of there, so he's going to have to find minutes elsewhere. And yesterday in the starting 11, Szoboszlai was moved into that deeper two, definitely the 8 more than the 6 in those deeper two, but deeper than he was deployed last season. So, that's interesting for him. He's a guaranteed starter for so much of last season. Now he's going to be in direct competition with Ryan Gravenberch, with Alexis McAllister, with Endo at times as well. So, that's maybe, I don't think it's going to be the death of him at number 10. I think there will be odd games where he starts there and maybe Wirtz doesn't. And maybe we do see Wirtz in certain games pushed out to the left just to give Liverpool some real solidity in the middle that Szoboszlai definitely brings. But it's interesting. I think it creates that different competition in midfield, and it's something that Szoboszlai is going to have to really push to get in the starting 11 now, because what was his guaranteed starting place looks like it's being taken by a record signing, and you generally want to get those in the team. So very, very interested to see how that one plays out. Now, of course, moving forward as well, other talking points, one I want to talk about, one you can't ignore, is the fact that Darwin Nunez scores a hat-trick in this game. I mean, I'm not going to say off the back of this that he's proven he should be should be kept around. And that he's proven that he can salvage his Liverpool career almost. That's definitely not the case, really. I think he's the expectation is still that he's going to leave Liverpool this summer. But I do think the hat-trick shows really why Liverpool are not just going to give him away this summer, and they absolutely shouldn't do that. He's not. It's not worked out for him at Liverpool. There's no getting away from that fact. But he's not an absolutely awful player by any means. I mean, it's just, sometimes clubs don't fit, or a certain style of play or whatever. It's just not worked out for him. But I think, I think he showed in that game that there are definitely qualities there. You can say, yes, it's Stoke, yes, it's behind closed doors, but I think, that's still a championship team who have not turned up to be beaten 5-0. Their season is around the corner. They want to get their preparations up. They want to play well. They want to test themselves against Liverpool, and they've been kind of taken apart. So, Nunez is of a certain level, isn't he? And I mean, I looked at it today. He's got 40 goals for Liverpool and only 76 starts. So, that shows, as I say, I got to emphasise this, he's not absolutely terrible by any means, despite the way that people talk about him. And I think, he is a striker who can score at a decent rate. He will be a better fit for a different style of football, I would say. And so he's worth big money. And, getting that hat-trick yesterday and Liverpool putting the clips out surely will be helpful to them in terms of the shop window. And as I say, I do expect interest in him between now and the end of the window, and Napoli couldn't quite get there in terms of the figures, but I think there's Saudi interest, and they'll be keeping one eye on what he's done yesterday and know that he's a player who can do big things for them. So let's keep an eye on that. But as I say, I think it's proven that Liverpool should be asking for a decent fee for Nunez and should be holding out for that, and I do think they will get it because he isn't as bad a player maybe as is made out. Now, in terms of other talking points, move on now into I was going to say the defence, but it wasn't actually defence, because I'm talking about Jeremie Frimpong. And of course, maybe the first thing I want to talk about with him is, wow, he really is that quick. I think we can see from the clips that we were shown really that the speed of the guy is absolutely outrageous, which of course we watched him at Bayer Leverkusen and know that's the case, but when you see it in a Liverpool shirt, it's really, really almost surprising still. And as well as having pace, he showed quality with it. I think, real composure in moments, used the ball well, looked a good dribbler, and obviously he was involved in the goal that Chiesa scores with a cross to the back post that Gakpo puts back across then. Shows he's got quality in his feet as well as pace. But also, and maybe the key takeaway on this one really, is the link-up he had with Bradley down that right-hand side. And I think that's going to be key going forward this season, because one of the reasons I was did not expect that Jeremie Frimpong would be signed for Liverpool really was because I couldn't see how it would work with him and Conor Bradley. I thought Liverpool would want to give Conor Bradley a lot of minutes at right back. I didn't think they would want to relegate him to being second choice again. But I think it shows there are going to, so how do you sell to him? How would you say to Frimpong, will come and you'll be in direct competition? How do you sell that there are sufficient minutes for him there? Well, I think the way to do it is by occasionally using him on the wing. So there are enough minutes for Bradley, there are enough minutes for Frimpong, and everybody's kind of happy in that rotation. So, and I think, the fact that we're seeing it this early in pre-season, Frimpong being used in that position, shows that he is a genuine option, that Liverpool weren't just bluffing when they said that when he signed. He is going to be used there from time to time in that advanced position, and he showed he's very, very comfortable in doing that in the game yesterday, I thought. But, and I think it's just going to be very important that, because you're going to have to give Salah more rest for me than you did last season. There are going to be moments, of course he's going to be away at AFCON for starters, so you've got an immediate hole in your team there that needs to be filled, and Frimpong can definitely be amongst the options that comes in to fill it. But also, I think, the last 20 minutes of games that you've got wrapped up, you need to get Salah off more frequently. You need to really take care of him, and Frimpong is an option for that. League Cup games, get Frimpong a start on the wing, just look after Salah a little bit more than last season, I think, and maybe he can have a stronger finish to the season. And as I say, the AFCON factor there is absolutely massive. So, just got to be a little bit more careful with him, and I think Frimpong's going to be absolutely key to that, really. And I think he showed yesterday that it can work with him on that right wing. He's very comfortable in advanced positions, as we know from his time at Bayer Leverkusen. But again, very, very good to see it in a Liverpool shirt. My final talking point really is about some of the young kids who were involved yesterday, and of course it's the two young kids that talk about quite a lot, which is Rio Ngumoha and Trey Nyoni. Now, it just looks to me like they are being primed for a decent sized role in the Liverpool first team squad this season. I mean, You looked at Nyoni yesterday, the fact he's starting the game for starters again, he's just involved in pre-season, isn't he, heavily, and some of his passing and his moments of that, I've just thought he just looks so composed. I mean, you saw in the build-up to some of the goals as well, some of his hammering it through the lines, really, really crisp passing or quick passes out wide that get Liverpool into advanced positions. He's just got good vision, good power on his passes, the way he puts a bit of information on it as well. And one in particular he fires through to Florian Wirtz as well, just really, really caught the eye. That's something Liverpool are going to need, progression from deep. I've talked about it a lot. It's something they're maybe going to miss without Trent Alexander-Arnold, actually. I think he can provide that now. He's not going to be in the team every week. He's still only just turned 18, hasn't he? But I think there are minutes for him, and I think we're going to slowly see him ramped up and be more around the team over the course of this season. More minutes in the League Cup, more minutes in the FA Cup. Give him a Premier League debut, get him involved in that competition as well. Again, can you get him on for the last 20 minutes of a game? I think that would be really important, but he's clearly a big part of this manager's plan. And the manager seems to really like him, and I think he showed a lot of why really in that yesterday, or certainly from what we saw. And of course, Rio Ngumoha gets a goal in the first half. I mean, the fact he's being used from the off is again really encouraging. He's being stepped up into this now, isn't he? To be around the first team at this point of his career, really. He's not yet turned 17. It just shows how highly rated he is and why Liverpool wanted to bring him in from Chelsea. He gets his goal, good feet, gets a bit of a deflection on the strike, but if you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the raffle, do you? So thought that was really encouraging, and he's just involved. And again, he's one where you just think there's got to be opportunity surely for him in the domestic cups this season. I would like to see that. Maybe there's a chance that Liverpool end up with slightly fewer senior forwards, and that bumps Ngumoha up slightly closer, because obviously it was 6 last season, then Ngumoha was the 7th. If they maybe go with kind of 5 and then Ngumoha, like I say, chances in the domestic cups there. And I think, to talk about both these players, really, it's a little bit of a test of Arne Slot, because I think last season, for obvious reasons, first season, Liverpool immediately being thrown into a title charge, it was wise not to use the kids too much. You had to get that trophy over the line. But I think now, going forward, going into his second season, he has to show that he's capable of bedding these kids in, because Liverpool have got a lot of young players who are very good, and the reason that they're so good at signing some of these players as well from domestic rivals is because they offer a clear pathway, or they have offered a clear pathway, so they've got to deliver on that. It's really important. So I think you have to see Ngumoha and Trey Nyoni involved a little bit more this season, and as I say, it's a little bit of test of Arne Slot if he's capable of doing that. But I think the involvement they've had in pre-season shows that he's at least got one eye on thinking about that. So, we'll see how he gets on in terms of that going forward. So, going to wrap it up there and ask if you can like and subscribe. It's massively appreciated. And actually, before I go, you might not believe this, but I am actually on TikTok now. So you can find kind of shorter clips talking about games, talking about news, talking about transfers on there if you do use that. So it's, as ever, on every platform, at David Lynch LFC if you want to find me on there. I won't be doing any TikTok dances on there though, I do promise that, but I'm going to wrap it up there as usual. Like I say, if you can like and subscribe, if you can join me on TikTok as well, it'd be much appreciated, and I'll see you guys very soon.